In this video we will talk about the 4 weapons not in Ukraine that could make a real difference in their battle against Russia, perhaps even helping to speed up the end of this terrible war. But like all things, it's not a guarantee and frankly is highly dependent on time and the level of commitment. One of each simply won't be enough. At this point, could I please ask you to drop a like and subscribe? Comments are super important, disagreeing is completely fine. In fact, we welcome the conversation. Number 4. Ukraine's Soviet-era Air Force needs better aircraft. Combat losses in the past 5 months have cost it nearly 4 dozen fixed-wing combat aircraft out of an original fleet of fewer than 150. With fewer aircraft available, each plane has to endure more sorties and wears down faster. Currently the force has more pilots than aircraft. This situation is degrading their ability to support the ground forces and carry out anti-air suppression sorties. The Ukrainian pilots themselves believe that the F-16 would be sufficient to compete against Russia's more advanced air force. Going further, they believe it would take less than a year for them to become proficient on the plane. Whilst qualified MiG pilots could be trained quickly, it's the inevitable maintenance that could pose a problem, as it could take upwards from a year to a year and a half for the necessary training to get a maintenance ready. Frankly, we don't believe that Ukraine has enough time. Then of course there are the endless munition possibilities and the cost of getting those ready, as well as the cost of such equipment. Would the F-16 have a chance against the 4.5 generation Russian fighters like the Su-35? Honestly yes, but their most effective scenario would be a close-in dogfight, where the superior handling of the F-16 would most likely see it win. The Su-35 could arguably just accelerate away if it felt threatened. The Su-35 off-bore missile attack could also prove fatal in a close attack. But as Maverick always says, it's not the plane, it's the pilot, and right now the Ukrainians are looking for a solution that allows them to kill Russian planes. The F-16 would be massively beneficial to the Ukrainian war effort, but whether it's practical is another question. The best alternative would be to find good quality Russian exports and assist with an international effort to reconstitute the Air Force. Number 3. The General Atomics MQ-1C Grey Eagle is a medium-altitude, long-endurance unmanned aircraft system. It was developed by General Atomics Aeronautical Systems for the United States Army as an upgrade of the famous General Atomics MQ-1 Predator. The drone is powered by a Thiele Centurion 1.7 heavy fuel engine. This is a diesel piston engine that burns jet fuel, giving the aircraft better performance at high altitudes. It can operate for 36 hours at altitudes up to 25,000 feet or 7,600 meters, with an operating range of 200 nautical miles or 370 kilometers. The drone can carry a payload of 800 pounds and can be armed with weapons such as AGM-114 Hellfire missiles and GBU-44B Viper strike-guided bombs. Its sensors can fuse infrared imagery and use the SAR to scan and detect changes in terrain like tire tracks, footprints, and buried improvised explosive devices when performing a second scan. Reuters reported on the 1st of June 2022 that the Biden administration plans to sell 4 Grey Eagle drones to Ukraine, each capable of carrying up to 8 Hellfire missiles. The plan has been under Pentagon review for weeks, but could yet not occur if the Congress blocks it. The delay in sending these drones could be done to the Ukrainians themselves, who have become increasingly despondent about the effectiveness of large drones in the current conflict. The Turkish Bayraktar was used to amazing success in the early days of the war, but as the Russians started to improve the deployment of their anti-air units, so things have gotten difficult for the Ukrainians. There is a genuine fear that the Grey Eagles could end up getting shot down and any sensitive material captured. There is a real belief that they wouldn't last 1 or 2 missions and would be extremely expensive at $10 million each. So why did it make it onto this list ahead of the F-16? The answer is purely logistical. There are qualified drone operators in Ukraine who would not be in harm's way, so could keep operating as long as the machine stays in the air. F-16s require mortals to actually fly them, and these are not an unending resource. The Grey Eagle represents a massive step forward with exceptional loitering time and an enlarged attack package. However, this is a risk-based game, and I do not see the Americans taking the risk on these machines. Number 2. The German Leopard 2 main battle tank would make a very nice addition to the Ukrainian armored forces. The battlefield of Ukraine has severely dented the prestige of the MBT. The vast open spaces have left them easy prey to the highly effective anti-tank systems and artillery that is currently fielded. Which brings us to the belief that only the very best version of the Leopard should even be considered, unless we want more pictures of Leopards with no turrets like those that came out of Syria where the Turkish were using baseline tanks, without the active protection systems, like the Israeli Trophy APS, fitted. Granted, the Turks were fielding the older 2A4 series tanks. These retain an older boxy turret configuration which affords less protection from modern anti-tank missiles, especially to the generally more vulnerable rear and side armor, which is a bigger problem in a counterinsurgency environment, where an attack may come from any direction, just like in Syria. So how would Leopard help? It would have to be the 2A7 in our opinion, to give the Ukrainians the very best chance and not to have them go the way of the Turks. The tank itself is infinitely superior to the current Russian-made machines in the fight. Its main gun, the Rheinmetall 120mm smoothbore L-55, does exactly as advertised and fires all NATO rounds in the 120 by 570mm size. The tank also features a completely new armor package that features tungsten, titanium as well as nanoceramics. The 2A7 also has new munitions to allow it to defeat the frontal armor of the T-90. But the most pressing advantage over the Russian forces would be the battle management suite for the tank commander. This allows him to pick and assess various forms of intelligence, effectively removing the fog of war and allowing him to make quick decisions and to get his gun on target. Improved situational awareness is a massive force multiplier, and Leopard gives that in spades. It's machines like this that really tests the West's resolve. Unfortunately, they have decided to send the tanks to other countries in exchange for their Russian-made tanks being transferred to Ukraine. One of the big excuses this far has been the training of maintenance teams and crews. Something that is considered difficult to impossible during a hot war like we currently find ourselves in. Number 1. The success of HIMARS and the fact that we are currently in an artillery-driven war has meant that this option would be an easy number 1. The MGM-140 Army Tactical Missile System, or ATACMS, is a surface-to-surface missile manufactured by Lockheed Martin. It has a range of up to 192 miles or 309 kilometers with solid propellant, and is 13 feet or 4.0 meter high and 24 inches or 610 mm in diameter. The ATACMS can be fired from the M142 High Mobility Artillery Rocket System, or HIMARS. An ATACMS launch container has a lid patterned with 6 circles like a standard HIMARS rocket lid, but contains only one missile. The reason for this design is to help fool the enemy into thinking it contains the less valuable missiles. To put this into perspective, a standard HIMARS rocket has a range of 92 miles. So the ATACMS is designed for high-precision long-range strikes, and would enable the Ukrainians to rain down hellfire upon the Russian rear with impunity, potentially even striking into Russia itself. Initially there was the Block 1 munition, but this was phased out in favor of the 1A, which has a minimum range of 100 kilometers, and deploys a single 160 kilograms warhead. The maximum range depends on the warhead, with 300 kilometers for the submunition and 270 kilometers for the unitary. This warhead can be equipped with 300 M74 submunitions, which are dispersed over the target area, or a unitary He warhead. There are 2 different versions of the single warhead munition, fragmentation or for He hard target penetration. The accuracy for the unitary warhead is estimated between 10 to 50 mCEP, though the saturation from submunitions eliminates CEP as a concern. CEP stands for circular error probable, and given what we are trying to do with this video, I would recommend you Google this concept to understand it better. In terms of numbers, the US has stock of the Block 1 and almost 700 of the Block 1A. The ATACMS Block 1A unitary has been designed to minimize collateral damage and to attack critical target points in all weather. Its 300 km range allows it to attack targets far behind enemy lines, and rapid reloading allows for sustained firing. The small size of the missile and the mobility of launch vehicle system allow it to be positioned for maximum effectiveness and security. Imagine HIMARS, but even more surgical and with significantly improved range. So why hasn't the US sent the missile yet? I believe that given its mission, the US is concerned it could provoke the Russians and potentially escalate the war beyond Ukraine. But they are exaggerating Russian capabilities, and ignoring the fact that Russia has used virtually every possible conventional weapon in Ukraine, and has extensively targeted Ukraine's civilian population. The Russian war effort has long been at its maximum level of destruction. Let's not forget that the Russian army has deployed all of its tactical units in the war, and has no strategic reserve of competency to extend the war into the Baltics or any other NATO country. In conclusion, will we see these weapons fielded? I do not know. Unfortunately, I believe that some Western nations are still trying to play things safe, and are almost in denial that this is an out-of-control hot war with no time for reluctant fence-sitters. We must commit, and we must do so to get a victory quickly.